I remember the first time that I ever saw one of my teachers cry. It's a day I'll never forget. And it's honestly quite the story. You see, at around the age of 7, my family and I had moved to Turkey, specifically Istanbul. My father was a commodity trader dealing with sesame, and his work had brought us there at the time. My time in Turkey was filled with countless of beautiful memories. I remember simply being able to walk to the Bosphorus Straits, grab some hot Turkish vendor pancakes along with their famous Turkish Dandura ice cream, and simply watch cars just travel back and forth from Asia to Europe on the Bosphorus Bridge. There was something so calming about the sound of fast traffic clashing against the soft yet rash sounds of the waves. Yet even amongst all those beautiful days, there was one day in particular that was beautiful in a way that I could have never imagined. I remember the day when I went on a field trip to a place called Taksim Square, a street bazaar that was busy and hearty with beautiful architecture from Istanbul's past. It was a hot day, and our bus had just pulled up to one of the many entrances of Taksim Square, expelling what can only be described as a stampede of first-grade kids rushing their way out to get out of the bus and taste what seemed like complete power and freedom. Even amongst all of those adults who were selling and ushering us to come over to buy their goods, we still felt like little kings and queens. And soon after, in small groups, we embarked on tours, still feeling like little kings and queens. I'm going to be completely honest, I don't remember much about the tour whatsoever. You see, having already been there with my family before, the beautiful architecture and the vendored goods kind of seemed old and boring for my 7-year-old mind. However, that all quickly changed the minute a small local street girl caught my attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give it to you clear and cut straight. When a first grader catches the attention of a girl, really any girl, life gets real very quickly. That is because not only do you have more game than your awkward pre-adolescent middle school self, but you've definitely got better chances than your Pace Academy student genius self as well. First grade is where I primed, folks, and any guy who has spent their whole break being chased around by a girl wouldn't dare to disagree. So here I was, in the middle of Taksim Square, fixated on this girl, trying to now get her involved in a game of tag, because it was going to be legend, wait for it, dairy. On the right was myself and my class, and on the left was this small local street girl. She was seated on a thin blanket that was rolled across the hot pavement. She wore a torn-up yellow dress, and in front of her was a cup that had spare change. A young girl with ragged clothes and a torn-up dress, with a cup in front of her filled with money. Upon noticing these things, I finally understood what was happening. You see, this girl that was now clearly the girl in my dreams, was rich. Holy cow, money with a girl. I was losing my mind. I'm like, oh my God, she's a goddamn millionaire. Like I was ready to play tag with her for the rest of my life. Yeah, but obviously, as some of the smarter individuals in this room can tell, no, she was not rich. Rather, what she was one of 6,000 to 8,000 beggars in Turkey. So my first grade mind, completely not understanding her situation, goes up to my teacher to ask if I can invite her for a game of tag. I tap my teacher on the shoulder, show her the girl, asking her if I can call her over. My teacher looks at me, looks at the girl, looks at me again, looks back at the girl, just to make sure we're talking about the same individual. And just as she looks back for the second time, this girl gets up from her blanket and starts running. I mean, sprinting. And I was losing my shit because I had no idea how she knew what I was trying to get her involved with. But at that moment, our game of tag had begun, ladies and gentlemen. I was ready to dart over to the other side and try and grab her. And so, as any first grader would do, I immediately tried to do the following. Thankfully, my first grade teacher, who had significantly more brain cells than I did at the time, grabbed a hold of me because she recognized that that girl was running for any other reason besides wanting to play tag with my ugly ass. And so she grabbed me back. She grabbed me back and stopped me from making it past. I looked at my teacher, and my teacher, she looked a bit concerned. You see, she thought we had scared her off, and she felt bad. And so she called over our tour guide to ask if there's any way to apologize if we had scared her off and if we could call her back so she could mind her own business. Our tour guide looked at the girl that was running away from us. And upon seeing her yellow dress, he immediately recognized who that girl was. And what he told me next, what he told my teacher and I, will always stay in my heart. See, this girl, she wasn't just any other girl. She was a refugee, specifically a refugee who'd escaped from Palestine just about a year back, making her way safely to Turkey. On the way here, she'd lost her father. They got separated. On the way here, her mother gave birth to her little baby brother and soon fell ill. Once she got here, she was the only one capable of taking care of her family. And this girl couldn't have been any older than I was at the time. So, at around the age of 7, this girl had become the primary breadwinner for her family. At around the age of 7, this girl had become a beggar. I still didn't understand what was going on. And then our tour guide told us something else that was even more inspirational. See, every day, at the end of the day, this girl would collect all her money and pile it up into one big bunch on her blanket. She would then break it up into 3 different piles. She would take the first pile and run about half a mile to her right, where she would find herself to the closest mosque. She would then donate her money there in hopes that if there were anyone else out there like her, anyone else out there like her family, that this money could help them live a better life. Because she didn't want anyone else to be in the same situation that she was in. She would then run back to her pile of money, grab her second pile, and run another half a mile to her left, landing to the nearest synagogue. Because she realized that it wasn't only people like her, people from Palestine, who were suffering, but that there were others on the other side, just like her, who were going through the same things that she was, and she didn't want them to face that. And so she would donate that second pile of money to the synagogue in hopes that if there was anyone out there that she could help, that money would reach them. She'd finally make her way back for the final time to her blanket, take the last pile, put it back into her cup. That would be the pile she'd keep for her family. The average beggar in these United States earns around $30 a day. The average beggar in Turkey earns around 19 to 20 Turkish lira a day. You convert Turkish lira into US dollars, and the average beggar earns about $2.20 a day. You split that into 3 ways, and this girl and her family were living on 73 cents a day. 73 cents for water, 73 cents for food, 73 cents for clothes, 73 cents to live a life. But never once did that stop her from making those runs. The next thing I remember was hearing sobbing. I looked up to my teacher, and that's when I saw the tears falling down her eyes. I remember the first time I saw my teacher cry, and it was right then and right there. And truth be told, I still didn't understand what was happening. I didn't know what it meant to be a refugee. I didn't know what it meant to be afflicted by a war, to be afflicted by hunger, to be escaping something that you possibly couldn't outrun. But I knew, or at least I thought I knew, that teachers, adults, they weren't supposed to cry. Yet still right there in front of my very own eyes was my teacher tearing up. And that's when I noticed my tour guide and realized that he too had tears coming out from his eyes. See, the art of storytelling has been something that's been passed down from generation to generation since the beginning of time. Stories are what empowers us to do, to believe, to be who we are. And this story, the force of this story, had somehow snuggled away into my heart and latched on. And even though I wouldn't recognize its meaning until much later, it still stayed there for the longest time and still stays here now. So fast forward, I'm in 6th grade. We're living in Singapore. I'm on another field trip, this time at a place called Arab Street. It's a hot day, and our group decides to stop for a water break. While on our water break, an elderly woman approaches me. She has a bag of tissues that she's trying to sell me for some spare change. This was common in Singapore. Elderly poor people would sell small goods in order to make a living. But this time, when this woman approached me, I didn't see an old woman. I didn't see an old female figure. Rather, what I saw since Tuxum Square for the first time ever was that small local girl in her yellow dress running. And almost instinctively after that, I reached for a water bottle in my bag, grabbed some spare change from my wallet, and handed it to this old woman. And the truth is, I didn't know why I did it. Yet here I was witnessing as this woman took this water and change into a shaded area and gulped the whole thing down to quench her thirst. I still didn't know why I did it, but I had. And I don't tell you this story to boast or show off about one selfless act I committed. No, I tell it to you because I was confused. At that very moment, there was so much I didn't understand about my actions, yet there was so much I understood about myself because I had been empowered by the force of her story. I had learned how to empower others. And that's what I felt I did to that old woman. And the truth is, in the long run, I really didn't make an impact on her. It's not like I single-handedly solved her problems, but in that moment, I couldn't help but feel happy, feel content, feel fulfilled with my actions, because as I watched her quench her thirst and a smile light across her face, I felt as if I had made a difference. And that's when I realized that that's a difference that all of us can commit to making. That's a difference that we all can have on this world. We all have the power to force a story into those around us, into the next generation, and for them to then take that power and empower the others after that. That's the power of storytelling that I was taught from one story of a small little girl. I never saw that little girl after Tuxum Square. Neither did I ever get to play a game of tag with her. But being completely honest, given her generosity and maturity, she was probably a bit out of my league anyway. But what she did teach me was something more valuable than I'd ever learned at the time. She taught me what it meant to be empowered. She taught me how to empower, and she taught me the force of kindness. And whether that's something as simple as just telling someone they look beautiful to light a smile across their face, or lending a helping hand whenever you can, we all have that power to make a difference, to do good. We all can create a story for others, and then that they can take that story and make it their own later. After all, an empowering game of tag. Never did hurt anyone.